Hello and welcome to Artifax, the monthly show on City Cable 34 that deals with arts and what's going on in Minneapolis. Later on in today's show, we've got some guests from a Walker Arts Center, Minneapolis Public Schools partnership, and that's going to be a fun discussion. But first we're going to talk with Erin Rorke. She's the executive director of Artifax Alternative Arts Museum, and they've got some exciting shows that they've done and one that's up right now that you can go and see. Erin, thanks for coming on to the show. Welcome.
Thanks a lot, Phil.
Now, why don't we start by finding out a little bit about what Artifax is. What is that museum that you run?
Okay, Artifax is a nonprofit arts organization, and our primary mission is that we're dedicated to emerging artists and experimental art.
And how long have you been dedicated to these folks?
Well, we opened our doors in March of 1990.
Okay, so a couple of years.
Just about, yeah.
And what kind of shows have you done? Mostly local folks, or?
Yeah, we have done 3 installation shows, which was mainly with local artists. We also have had artists from out of town, from Wisconsin, and we had a large juried show where there are about 100 works of art that was exhibited.
In one particular show?
And that was all local Minnesota artists.
Hundreds of works. And how many artists would you say, if you were to estimate, that have been on the walls or in an installation at Artifacts? I mean, you're talking about dozens?
Yeah, including our wearable art shows, we've probably done about 300 now.
What was this wearable art show?
Well, that was a show where we have talked to artists that were interested in doing clothing, one-of-a-kind jewelry, clothing, wearable art, basically, to exhibit as a 2-day event, and that was a fundraiser for the organization.
So you kind of stretch the boundaries of what I think most people, maybe people watching, would think of as art. It's not only a 2-dimensional flat piece of art, but it can be wearable art. What other kinds of things? You mentioned installations.
Well, the installations really revolved around the artists themselves creating their own installations, working with some guest curators, and they came up with the proposals with us, and we worked on it together, and they set out doing the work.
What's different between an installation and what I would think of as an exhibition? How does that work differently?
Well, they're both exhibitions. The one thing about an installation is the artist works directly with the environment that's available to them, and from that they create their piece. So it works in the space and the environment that they have.
So it's much more site-specific.
Right.
They come in and they kind of work with that as their canvas, if you will.
Right.
All 3 dimensions of it, I guess. And what's your current show that's up?
Well, the current show right now we have is called Misfit Lit, and it's an exhibition that deals with contemporary comic art. And this happens to be a national show. We're showing underground artists from around the country. Okay,
so this is a touring show that you've brought to Minneapolis.
Right,
Okay, well, we have a poster that you've got that's both available to let people know about it. It's over here, and maybe we can take a look at that. Can you just describe what we're looking at?
Okay, that's a poster. That is an original drawing by Dan Klaus, and he's pretty well known in the underground comic world right now. And he did this poster, this drawing, specifically for the show, and it really tells the concept and the main theme about the show, where the woman who talks about the fact that comics aren't for kids anymore. And that is what this show deals with. It's adult comic art.
Now, this particular artist is known, as you say, sort of in the underground, so maybe most folks haven't heard of him. What is this underground art or comic movement? I mean, where does it come from? How long has it been going on? And where can people find it?
Well, you know, up until now, it's been something that's been in the comic book stores. You have to go and find these books, and it's just recently been getting a lot of attention. Because artists like Robert Crumb do amazing work. And
that's a name that people might recognize from at least, what, 20 years ago or
right,
so?
Exactly, yeah. He's one of the founders of this whole underground comic art.
It seems to me, too, that a trend has been that more women are getting involved in this. That, at least in my mind, it seems like it was pretty much a male thing, and now females are getting more involved.
Right, exactly. There happens to be, well, some people might be familiar with Linda Barry. She's also in the show. And then there's a woman, Julie Doucet. And there is one coming to the fore, Roberta Gregory, who is kind of speaking out against a lot of the abuse and the perception of women in a lot of the male comics that have come out in the last 20
You
years.
might even call it misogyny or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
she's sort of
pretty rough
taking-
stuff sometimes.
Yeah, she's sort of taking revenge and giving
Yeah.
a female point of view, and it's real interesting stuff.
Well, now beside us here, you brought, much to my pleasure here, you've got one of Linda Berry's pieces from your show.
Right. This is an original of Linda Berry's, and it deals with a wife who just found out that she got pregnant, and it's her husband's reaction to it, an overzealous husband's reaction to it. And it's a fun piece. She's got 4 pieces in the show right now.
Right, and now Linda Berry is maybe one of the better known so-called underground comic artists in the country.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, she's probably almost any city's got some local paper or weekly or something that's got her in it, I would think.
And she's really making a name for herself, definitely.
That's great.
Right, she's covered in our city pages.
Now, part of your show, I know it's the national show that you've got in, Misfit Lit, but you made a point also to have some local artists represented.
Right,
Can you talk about some of the things that are going on locally and who's involved?
Well, actually, the local community here is pretty big, and there is quite a community involved in what's called cartooning, and also this underground comic art. And so we went about and found as many connections as we could that was affiliated with that, and got a fairly good representation of what's out there. In terms of, there's political cartoonists, and there are your cartoonists, and then there are the comic artists. And there's debate as to what's different about the two. Some people consider it all comic art, some people draw the line. You know,
I've heard the term sequential art somewhere,
right,
I think, in your
sequential.
Well, you brought a few
panel.
things that you have over at the exhibition. This is the catalog, as I understand it, right here. And can you talk a little bit about this, or what we'll find in it?
Well, the catalog's put out by the Center of Contemporary Arts in Seattle, Washington, and Fantagraphics Books, which also happens to represent, it's a publishing firm that does represent a lot of these artists. And one of the interesting things about the catalog is it's a response to the misconception about a lot of this art and the fact that it is art, and that's what they're trying to get across right now to people.
And what else do you have here? Just other books of art?
Yeah, that's actually a Dan Klaus book, and that just gives you an idea. We also are selling books and T-shirts and posters supplied by Fantagraphics, and anyone who does purchase items from us will help benefit the organization also.
That's good. What's the reception been to this particular show?
Oh, it's just been great, and it's really interesting because we've gotten a lot of people in there who've never been in a gallery or art space before.
Is that because they're interested in this kind of art, but they haven't made the step into other galleries for other kinds of art?
Well, I think there's just a real cross-section on this show.
Yeah.
You know, it's just bringing people out who would normally go to a comic book store and read their comics and come right into this, you know, museum and see it right on the walls.
And that fits in with your mission for Artifax.
Right, exactly, right. The more experimental type, controversial works, right.
So you're building audiences.
Right, exactly.
You said controversy. How hard is it to put a show like this up? And there has to be a certain amount of effort just to make the contacts and get them up there. Have you run into any interference? I mean, are people saying, geez, that's a little too rough or risque for us? Or
well, we did when we were looking for space, because we are in the Wyman building right now as temporary space. And as we were going about looking for other venues to show the work in, we did run across kind of, well, can we see the work, please?
So they want a little prior approval here.
Right, and the response.
But now the Wyman building's been receptive.
Right, they've been incredibly supportive.
Sure.
It's just been real great for us.
Now we should mention before we go, we can talk a couple more minutes, where is the show, what's the address, and how long will it be up?
Okay, the show is in the Wyman building, which is 400 First Avenue North, and we're on the second floor in room 232.
So second floor of the Wyman building, along with numerous other galleries there.
Right.
And as I recall, then you'll have this show up through the gallery crawl, which will happen at the end of January.
Right.
So people can come down there on that Saturday evening, see lots of art, and end up.
Well, that's what we're anticipating right now.
Right. And people come show up and see the show at Artifax.
Right.
Okay. Well, a couple of questions about background. You're doing this. You're doing some interesting shows. You're bringing some new art to the eyes of Minneapolis. You're getting more artists involved. What got Erin Rorke involved in this? What inspired you to do this? This isn't an easy task.
Actually, it started back in around November of '88, and there were some friends of mine who did some real experimental, surrealistic work, and They were both artists, and they couldn't find a place to show. There just wasn't really any place for them to show at the time. And it was pretty discouraging coming right out of college and not seeing that there was that much out there in the community for the the artists who's just getting their foot out the door.
The emerging artists you were talking about. Is it sort of a generational thing that Artifacts represents? It sounds like emerging artists, but not necessarily all the same age. I mean, they're not all folks just getting out of art school or college, are they? Or
no, because the jury show was real varied. You know, we had people who've been doing art for 20 years next to someone who had just come out of college, basically. So that was a real mix, and that was really great about that show, you know, because the entries, we had about 180 entries, 190 entries for the show.
So there's a great demand for this kind of a museum that you run.
And it was really interesting because there are quite a few established artists that didn't get in, and it was based on the merit of the work itself.
Right. What's next for Artifacts? What are your plans?
Well, we're working on another show, which is a drawing exhibition, and that we've opened up as a national show as well, dealing with drawings on time, aspects of time. So that's one thing that we're putting together right now.
Sounds good.
Another big show.
And you're looking for a permanent home?
Yeah, we are. We're looking for a permanent space.
Somewhere in Minneapolis, I take it?
Right. That's what we're looking for in that area.
Good. Well, Erin, I want to thank you for coming in and talking and sharing the Linda Berry, and the show is at the Wyman Building through January 25th.
Right,
Misfit Lit.
And our hours are Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 5.
Okay, so come on down.
Right, okay.
Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thanks a lot, Phil.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
And we'll be back in a moment to talk with some more guests, but first we have an interesting fact for you to take a look at. And welcome back. Now, in this part of the show, we've got three very interesting guests. They've been pretty lively here as we've been getting ready for this part of the show. And really the question is, South High and the Walker Arts Center, what the heck do they have in common? And we're going to explore that a little bit. We have Alf Watt, who's a student at South High. We have Seitu Jones, an artist, and he's on the staff at the Walker Arts Center. And Sally French, who is the arts coordinator, fine arts coordinator at South High. So welcome to you all. Thanks for being here. Let's start right off with Sally. What is it you're doing at South High? What is your position? And then we'll find out how that's linking with the Walker Arts Center.
I'm the fine arts coordinator at South High School, and I have the privilege and the responsibility of coordinating one of the most interesting programs in the schools, any place, I think. Because South High School has the commitment of its principal, Andre Lewis, we've been able to have partnerships with the organizations, the arts institutions in the city. It started with Jack Latowski, who was fine arts coordinator and theater director about 4 years ago, came up with this great plan, and it's a very simple one, but one which is very replicable. And basically, we take 20 students to the arts institution of the student's choice, and we go every day. It's a 2-hour block. The kids get 2 credits for it, usually an English credit and an elective credit. And they learn all about the institution. And the purpose of it is, one, for them to learn about it, but secondly, for them to become advocates. And eventually, they learn to give tours of the institution. And right at this very moment, we have 70 students at the Guthrie Theater that are going through, 78th graders. And the students who go to the Guthrie are leading those tours. And we have 5 partnerships, one with the Guthrie Theater, which was first, one with the Walker Arts Center, which followed, one with the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, and the Minnesota Orchestra, and the new one this year is Opus, which is with the Minnesota Opera. It's a wonderful opportunity for young people to learn about the arts in the Twin Cities, and then to tell other people about it.
Well, it's quite a step beyond the old field trip. I mean,
Yes.
you're not just taking people to see a given show or something here. And one of the students from South High is Alf Watt. And you chose to be involved in the particular project or partnership that
The
you're in?
Walker Arts Center program.
Now, what is it you're doing there?
We're going in 2 days a week and being trained as tour guides so that by March as soon as March, we're going to be able to give tours at the Walker Arts Center. We're being trained with the regular tour guide class, so we've got the same amount of work, and we get the same amount of tours eventually.
Great. Now, what was your personal interest in the Walker? Is visual arts part of your background? Or?
I do visual arts some. I like modern art a lot, and it's the Walker Arts Center. It's a place I really like. Like the installations they've got up now are all ones I'm really enamored with.
Is it a place you'd gone to on your own before this program, or
It's
has this
actually
really
it
introduced to you?
hasn't. It wasn't. I just signed up because I thought Walker Arts Center is a great place. I thought I liked the building.
Right, and you'd heard about it?
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I've heard about it, and it's
Sure.
really.
Maybe we'll get back to that.
Going
but
through.
The architecture was kind of compelling, is what you're saying.
Well,
You
it
like the space.
reminds me of good old South High. There's no windows.
No, that's the connection I hadn't thought. That
Oh, yeah.
the school architecture and a museum. Now, Seitu, you're an artist in your own right, but you're also, in this case, as we're talking, involved with the Walker Arts Center. What is it you're doing there? And you must be working with Alf on the other side of the...
Well, indirectly. My position there, my job title is Community Programs Coordinator. That's an awful lot, and that's a mouthful, really. But really, what I do is a lot of outreach, so it means working with organizations such as neighborhood groups, community organizations, social service centers, and trying to establish ties and relationships with those institutions and Walker Arts Center. But another part of my responsibility has been trying to create, working towards the creation of teen and adolescent programs. The Walker has looked at this audience as an audience that we really want to tap into. Kathy Hallbreich, the new director, has said over and over again, I mean, this is a time in people's lives where they look at themselves as iconoclasts, and many of the world's great artists were also iconoclasts. So there is a match there. But part of it, too, is to remove some of the mystery of what goes on inside a museum and open it up for any number of reasons. And one is so that students can become, in a way, mini ambassadors and claim ownership, like Alpha's done, of Walker Arts Center. That doesn't mean walking away with one of the Picassos there, but it means being comfortable there and comfortable enough to talk about it with other people. And what Alf talking about Walker Arts Center, the South High students, would carry much more weight than the great Seitu even. And so we want to create a whole group of people that can go out and do that.
Can we pick up on that for a second? Alf,
Yeah.
when you, obviously there's some other South High students that are involved in this particular program. When you go back, though, and you're on the cross-country team and things like this, do you talk with other folks about what's going on with your
Yeah.
experience at Walker?
Oh, I like say to people, you want to go to Walker Arts Center now. The exhibitions that up are just great, and they're going to come down, whenever.
So do people end up
I don't know.
heading
Some people
over?
do.
Some do, yeah.
I like keep trying, basically,
Yeah.
because the exhibitions, like I said, the ones they have up are really, really nice. And like Seitu said, that we kind of claim ownership, and he's talking about with one of the Picassos. I was going to ask him, we have more than one Picasso? and
Been scoping it out, eh?
yeah. Well,
Well, to be honest, there aren't that many works from that time period.
Yeah.
And one of the things, this is a little plug for Walker Arts Center, the permanent collection right now is being reinstalled. And so this is an exciting time for the Walker, and especially for the tour guides. I mean, the tour guides that have been there for many years have had an exhibition space and an exhibition of works that has been fairly static. And now that whole collection is being reinstalled in a whole entirely different way. And Alf and the rest of South High students are going to be among the first class of tour guides that will have graduated from this program that we have, that will be trained in this new installation. And so, saying all that to say, there aren't a lot of works
Yeah.
from that time period, but there are going to be some interesting links and more work, greater diversity of work too.
Now, the Walker also curates the Minneapolis Sculpture Garden. So does this go into that as well, inside the walls and outside the
in
walls?
fact, the first, our first collaboration with South High was training a group of kids during the last spring trimester to be tour guides in the sculpture garden. And it actually had two other purposes. One was also to use the sculpture garden as a point of departure for teaching kids about the role and the history of public art in society. And then it was to introduce them to museum sciences. And so they had an opportunity to go into, go behind the scenes at Walker Art Center and talk to people who are heading departments about what they do and the career path that led them to that particular position. And from that class, we ended up hiring 4 students for the summer who acted as tour guides in the garden and garden ambassadors.
And you mentioned a key word, they're hired.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there was a little bit of money involved
Exactly,
here.
Oh,
exactly.
that's
So
nice.
that's an
Yeah.
that's an
That's-
incentive.
So that's something you'd be interested in doing
Yeah.
a summer job or something?
That's but the other thing is that's separate from the tour guide training thing.
Right.
So,
Right, but it's part of your
yeah,
experience
it's
at the
part
Walker.
of the Walker Art Center thing. Yeah.
And I should say, too, that tour guide training at the Walker Art Center is a 6-month program where we take volunteers and for 2 days, they come in for 2 days a week and learn touring techniques and also learn about the history of modern art from over the last 100 years and use those touring techniques with this knowledge of our history to conduct tours at Walker Art Center. And then there's specific training for special exhibits, like for the Interrogating Identity exhibit that'll be up through February 23rd. Another quick plug in there.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. This show will be airing through the month of January, so people watching should know. They can come in and catch that. Sally, some of the things that Seitu mentioned made me want to ask you a question about this wonderful program that's going out to the institutions. How does it plug in back at the school with arts education within South High?
Well, in a number of different ways, and Alpha is a really good example because the students who are in these programs generally are students that are interested in all of the arts. And for example, Alf just finished starring roles in Scrooge, the Meanest Man in Town, so he's in theater. We have a wonderful ceramics laboratory with many pottery wheels, and he works in pottery. And the current project that we're undergoing right now, which people in the community would like to hear about, is a billboard project.
Sounds fun.
And Alf just finished working on one of the billboards too. We're going to have 5 that will be up around the city in February. And there will be a total of more than 60 students who will have worked on them. They work on them for 3 days under the direction of Pater Hellstrom, who's one of our visual artists in the community. And a group of 12 will complete a billboard in 3 days and fold it up and put it away, and then Nagley's going to put them up in February.
Various locations in Minneapolis.
Right. So we have a really strong fine arts program at South High School that covers a lot of different bases.
Let me ask you a question, because I know at the state level, there have been some cuts and some changes in funding for what we could call arts education. And this is very exciting to hear about this in-depth partnership with the institutions. Sounds like South High has a strong program, and you've been an advocate, regardless of what hat you were wearing over the years. I know you've been a strong supporter of arts and arts education. What's your feeling, and I'm going to ask all of you this for your sense on this, what's your feeling about the state of arts education? Are young people like Alf getting a good shot at it and opportunities?
Well, certainly at South High School, they're getting a generous opportunity to do that. My view is that arts are the signature of civilization, and that every good school program should include a very strong component in the arts as an equal partner with the other subject areas. And at South we are, and I think probably some of the other schools could take a good lesson from that, because it keeps students interested in school and they see a relevance to other things as well. For example, next trimester we're going to offer a course called Art in Math, and a math teacher and an art teacher are getting together to offer a course in that area. So it's kind of goes across the curriculum. How do you feel about that, Alex?
Of the way our school works with art, it's really great. I mean, I'm involved in a lot of the arts there. I've got, I work in the clay studio and in the graphic art studio, And I think, you know, other schools probably don't have the same amount of things that we do. I know we've got the only clay studio in at least the metro area, you know, probably more. The only full-time, I should say. It's kind of interesting. You know, I haven't been to any of the other high schools, and it's really hard to say what the other ones are like.
But from your point of view,
yeah,
it's been a good experience.
Oh, definitely. It's
Great.
you know, really a great program.
Well, Seitu, I'm curious to know your point of view on this. You work in the education department of one of our major institutions and nationally recognized institution, and you're also an artist, and I know you get out there and you work with young people in residencies and
Right.
things. You have kind of almost a statewide experience. What's
Yeah,
your
I
feeling
have.
lately and your hopes for the future?
Well, that's a subject I could spend an
Yeah.
entire show talking about. I mean, kind of in a nutshell, you know, over the last almost 10 to over 10 years, I've spent working through a couple different arts and schools programs that have moved me all over the state. So I've had an opportunity to see different arts curriculums up close. One of the unfortunate things is that in this time of declining budgets and with all the pressure that's been putting on our tax dollars right now, you know, unfortunately arts and the important parts or the strong parts of arts curriculums are the first thing to go. I mean, that's almost a cliche that we say it so much, but it's a fact. And then working now at Walker Arts Center in the education department there, we have seen an increasing number of requests coming from schools and school districts that are looking for ways, people who really want to do something or to have some sort of arts component to an everyday curriculum, are looking for ways and looking to institutions like us to help provide that more and more. I mean, in the Walker, and you said it has this national reputation, and it does. It has the largest department at Walker Arts Center is the education department, and it's been increasing over time. But even with that, it's hard for us to serve and to meet the needs of all the people who are requesting them. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure what the future holds.
It's not clearly a rosy future, though.
No, not at all. It's going to be challenging, and hopefully with more programs like this, where we can truly collaborate and combine resources, we'll see some sort of continuation of this effort.
Are you getting some folks from what they call Greater Minnesota, outstate Minnesota, coming to the Walker for some of this?
Yeah. The teachers' workshops that we conduct have people who are primarily from the metropolitan area, but people from all over the state as well. There's a program for teachers during the summer, and that one appeals primarily to outstate teachers. And then in addition, we send our educational materials throughout the state.
Right.
I think the institutions have a tremendous commitment toward providing arts for young people, and the commitment that the institutions have been making to our South High programs is astounding. It really is, because the time Seitu spends and all of the other volunteers and guests that come. For instance, yesterday, Richard Ooms, who's in Scrooge, spent an hour with our GATE students, which was quite generous. So we really appreciate it.
Well, that's good, and I want to thank you all for being here. We'll start looking for the billboards early in '92.
Good.
Seitu, keep up the good work,
Thank
and
you.
we'll maybe seeing you leading some tours over at the
Yeah.
Walker Arts Center later in '92.
March or April.
March or April.
Ask for Al.
As for Al.
Yes, ask for me, for South High students.
Thanks again. Glad you're here. Maybe we should have that talk about arts education another show.
Okay.
Try and do that. Well, it's been an interesting discussion now. At this point in the show, we usually like to refer to the lucky winners or the skilled viewers that knew the answer to last month's Artifacts question. Unfortunately, nobody called in with the right answer to last month's question. So we're just going to move on. This month's question is, what was the original name of the Children's Theater Company? Now, if you think you know the answer to that, call into our Artifacts hotline, 673-2234, and give us a call with the right answer or your guess. And if you're right, we will send you a fabulous prize with an actual money value attached to it. So give us a call with that. And please tune in and watch the show. Next month we'll have more interesting guests. This is Phill Lindsay, and stay tuned for a short calendar of events in Minneapolis.